Hello everyone, this is my face, that is Meta Kit Kat, aka Jamie's face.
Because I'm not moving at all today.
Yeah, we couldn't actually get the webcam working at the same time because my computer is shocking. So we can actually do both at the same time.
Dip it in liquid nitrogen.
I don't think we have kind of planned what we were going to do. I think we're going to start with just a new game, play through some stuff, and then kind of just talk about stuff as we go along, really.
We've got a few things on the list as we come to them. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I'll tell El he has to answer them, and we'll go from there. So, brand new game. We've killed all the bees in the previous world.
Yeah. Where do they go when they die? I don't know. I have got a special version in this one because I have the cheating version. Just in case we need to show off some other stuff, but I'll try not to cheat too much. Just so everyone gets kind of the same experience. I guess actually one thing I was going to mention is that Beatrice thing, which I don't know if anyone actually did keep their Beatrice, but there will be a reason to keep that in future.
Every time El says B, regardless of what sentence it is, I try and make eye contact with him over the internet. Made another pun, Elliott.
I think I'm glad that everyone's been appreciating the sense of humour with the guides. I think the tooltips were a bit too much, which is something we only really found out by putting the demo out, and then everyone complained that they'd hover over like a log and just be like, what do I do with this?
Because it was definitely a decision that we thought about early on as to whether to make them useful guides or whether to make them funny. And we were enjoying the puns way too much. And with the guide book that was already there, we thought the instructional tooltips might be a bit too much. But definitely in the state that it's in at the moment, we're telling you, when you can drop it, when you can place it, what you can do with different things as much as it was before.
Yeah, I think the snap to grid one was definitely missed a lot, and that's definitely a case of like we got so used to the fact that you could snap to the grid because we had just built it in from the beginning and then just never actually told anyone that that's what you could do.
So here we are, brand new world with the base building spawn. We can have a little look around, see what we can find. So El is playing this one, and I'm just watching him, judging him, and willing him to set things on fire, even though I know full well that that's not in the code. I live in hope.
One day I'll just put it in, just in your game. Like what?
Just one match.
Oh fuck, I came all this way, I don't have a hammer. This has been my tactic every single time, is just to come to the pier and steal all the wood. But every single time I forget to.
The amount of times I forget that you've put that in there with the logs and the planks, and to really accelerate that first early game, and then I remember it, but by then I've already got half of my island cut down and piled up in wood piles.
Yeah, just completely deforest and flatten the entire world, which is what we want really. Just want utmost efficiency. Only bee produce. We don't care about the bees. We do care about the bees.
We do care about the bees. Don't quote that out of context.
Yeah, don't. It's just the clips posted on Twitter everywhere. Don't care about the bees. No.
So here's the manual processing. So this is almost a tier 1 construction. Now, eventually there's going to be a couple more tiers, but we kind of like this first level, a bit more manual, a bit more kind of representative of what you're up to. So you feel like you're a bit part of the game, and later on got some better stuff, you appreciate it a bit more.
Yeah, and I think like it was one of the things that we kind of played with. I think the first sawmill that we actually made was actually what's going to become the tier 3 one, which is that it would just, you'd put logs in and it'd just go crazy and just start cutting it automatically. And then we were kind of looking at, is there a nicer way to just be, especially for some of the basic stuff, just be crafting some logs. Always gets a bit boring. I'm just going to steal all of this.
I keep forgetting that we made those tier 3 things as almost like some of the first sprites, especially some of the most animated sprites that we did right at the beginning, including the bouncing furnace that is now probably going to be tier 2 now.
Yeah. And it's definitely interesting to see like how much stuff, not scrap, but like how much stuff we did at the beginning that's then just only coming around now. One of the guys in the Discord, first thing they did was just open up the game files and look at all of the sprite sheets and was like, what's this thing? What's this thing? What's, like all these secret things.
I'm not supposed to know about this yet.
Yeah, all the things we were trying to sneak in. There's no way I can sneak in like bees or anything because people just straight away see the bee in the bee sprite sheet and then go in the code and try and find where the criteria is.
Okay, so Quist is saying the volume is slightly low. Is that on both of us, Quist, or is it on one of us? So while I'm waiting for that one, we saw Elle doing it earlier. It was one of the things that we really wanted from games like Minecraft, like Starbound, like Terraria that Elle's played but not me, is this ability to be able to open up multiple windows at one time, have multiple furnaces or construction plants, whatever it ends up being, so you can have more than just one in your inventory and start creating something that's really efficient of laid out, and be able to pull stuff out of open inventories as well. So you're not necessarily restricted to what's in your pocket, but you've got access to all the machines around you like you would in a real workshop.
Yeah, so even like me just having these sticks, as long as it's in something that's open, you're going to be able to craft with it, which I think is just something that gets a bit annoying with, especially like Minecraft, of just, picking between the menus all the time. I guess we can only kind of get away with it just because we're in 2D top-down. So, but it works quite well. And then there was a lot of stuff with like trying to make that really efficient with all the shortcuts and the shift to click and all that stuff. So I want to get some tree tap flowers.
Okay. Yeah, so that was a lot of that came through where we've all got like muscle memory of other different games, and then you're trying to use that, like I did anyway when we were first testing this out, of shift normally does this, this button normally does this, we need to add that in because it's been like a decade's worth of muscle memory in there. It feels really, it feels much more intuitive,
especially like some of the Minecraft keys. Like obviously for people who've never played Minecraft it's not really a thing, but for all the people that have played Minecraft and would play this because it reminds them of Minecraft, like having escape close the menus because it's just so embedded in you that is what closes the menus all the time. And it's quite, I think we were saying about like what stuff do we want to do that's our own, like setting the standard versus taking like an existing standard that like players of similar games would kind of know straight away.
Because some things are tropes or industry-wide for a reason, because they work, because they're easy to use, and there's like less distance between your thought process and what happens on screen. And if you're adding random shortcuts or button presses or that just to make yourself unique, you're not really making a more intuitive player experience. You're just doing something for artistic reasons, which
not
always the best choice.
And I think it's something that we are constantly in two minds about, the fact that we have, you have to equip something before you can place it down, because a lot of people kind of just do the whole like, oh, I'm gonna plop that there, and that's Terraria is to blame for that one, because you can do it in Terraria and it works great, and there's definitely a lot of people that have kind of played that play in this who then kind of expect that to happen as well. And I think it's just one of those things that kind of causes me a lot of headaches to think about, because I'm like, well, okay, if you can drop to place, how do we let you drop things that you can place? Like, is that another key that you have to introduce to get people to know, oh, nice little bug layer, bug. Let's get rid of that.
Quick, someone submit a bug report.
Someone submit a bug report that just says, Elliott, write better code. Let's just do that. And I'll know what one you mean. Let's go and find one more blue hives. I'm going to take your approach this time and actually color code hives to what I'm trying to do. So basically, you've got these hives, as you've been seeing me getting, which you can just smash with a hammer, pick it up, no problem. No one's hurt. And basically, you just have two different drones, two different bees. Go away, birds. Two different drones basically go together to make a queen, and then your queen will, produce stuff over time. In this case, it's just honeycomb, and at the end of the life cycle, it's just going to produce more drones. And we kind of, at the beginning, just kind of, people are just kind of collecting honey and not really doing anything. But then later, as you get more advanced, we're actually looking at stuff like, different combinations of bees to find new species, different combinations of bees for different produce, and like all the different traits that behind the scenes you don't realize it, but like this bee's got, a specific lifespan, specific productivity, behaviors, whether they like the rain or not, what time they're active, how stable they are for, mutating to new species. They're all kind of in there. And we're kind of hinting out with the user microscope to learn more, but essentially you'll just be able to like look into these stats and kind of min-max the stats, and get the different things you want. What am I doing though? Oh, just normal bees. Okay, that's fine. What was the audio thing? What do we need to change?
Probably one of us up a little bit. I don't know which one.
Okay.
I have moved the mic closer to my face, which might solve it.
Oh, is it your one?
It might be.
I was going to say, I can turn...
Messages. Shut up! Quieten down now!
Oh, Jesus Christ. Why am I doing that slowly? I want like a sort. I've been so spoilt by that chest organization mod in Minecraft that I want to be able to do the middle click to sort my shit. Terraria does a really nice one as well of just sorting stuff. It's just really nice to organize it. I saw an interesting one someone said about doing like filters on chests of what they contain, and then like when you're nearby you'll just be able to press a button and like automatically stack, just kind of similar to what there we go, to what Terraria does.
Let's turn you up a little bit as well.
Jump me up a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Let's do that. What about that?
Let's try that for now.
Yeah. We're just kind of working our way through the different things. The main reason to get the rotating around as well. Main reason to be getting the resin is kind of, yeah, it's got a crafting use in this version, hasn't it? With the frames. But the main reason is that we're going to have it form part of like a tier 2 material, is having resin and planks becomes like a treated wood. And then that's used in crafting sort of more advanced recipes. So it's probably going to be a case of we need a bit better of like a tier 2 tree tap. I guess these are okay, but I don't know, something a bit more.
So you mentioned tier 2 and 3 there, Elliott. Do you want to talk us through what we're thinking about that? Because I mean, we've got the manual tier 1 stuff, and part of the idea of the next stage is almost to free up your time for other things.
Yeah, and I mean, at the moment at night time, you could kind of sit through that. There's a bench that kind of lets you nap, and then you can just, pass the time really quickly. But obviously, like at this stage, it's kind of like where I've got no bees to be looking after. I'm just going to be using it to cut wood, but I don't really want to turn it into Carpentry Simulator 2020. Although, if you like that sort of thing, sure. And we want to do I don't want to do it sort of that you can leave it in there straight away. So the second one we want to do is clockwork. So there will be some sort of like wind motion, but you can just kind of wind it up and let it go. Same like the extractor for anyone who's played the demo so far. You can kind of just sort of pump it up and let it go for a little while. Have that, but for the saw bench, for the uncapping and the extractor stuff that we'll do later, just so that you can kind of I don't have to kind of manually do this stuff anymore. Just load a bunch of wood in, and then leave it going overnight while you go and do some other stuff. But culminating in tier 3 kind of being just a fuel-based machine that you can just kind of leave a bunch of logs in, and when you come back, they're all going to be done.
So this was one of the things that we buffed in the recent patch of now these, you get 2 planks out of each one, and the animation is a little bit quicker. Because in the full version where you've got access to tier 2, around about now, you could probably start thinking about a clockwork version of the workbench. But in the demo version, at least, the only way to get this wood is through this manual process. So for at least now, we've made that a lot easier.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, maybe we'd got used to it, or or what happened with that. But to us, we didn't really think about it, and that was definitely the first thing people were saying about the that early version of the game was like cool mechanic, but I don't want to be doing that for half an hour.
So we've got a question here from Smish saying, is there going to be any backpack upgrades?
Oh, yes, I definitely do want to do some backpacks, and I'm not quite sure what the plan is, because it's probably going to be some sort of item here. And I don't know if you've had any thoughts on this either, Jamie, but I was thinking it would just be basically like a portable chest, in the sense that, if I hammer that chest now, they all pop out. But with a backpack, you can just kind of open it up wherever you are, chuck a bunch of stuff in, and then even if you drop the backpack, it'd still just have everything sitting in it. Just want to get some more frames, I think.
Smish says, I kind of like how you've done it in Don't Starve when you have a backpack on.
Well, what do they do in Don't Starve?
Not played that one myself either.
I can't remember what the backpacks are. I first played that game when it was really early access, and died horribly a lot of times, and then it just kind of frustrated me, and I was like, I don't want to play this. But yeah, I really liked the style of done stuff. That's a really cool game.
And it's demonstrating one of the newest additions to the game, which is the quick queen button. So for some of us like me who've gotten used to the muscle memory for adding new drones into the basic hives, this has been a godsend.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who played the first version has just got extremely good at moving those two items over to the input slot. So it was a quick enough one to do, to just say, use up 2 of these output slots and chuck them in. But it's just one of those things that we kind of just got used to it and not really thought about. But there is something weirdly satisfying just about making the queens and just keep looping the production round. So we just kind of wanted to make that a lot nicer to actually do. Let's get. I'm gonna try and get a do the first hybrid.
Yeah, so let's talk about the hybrid situation, because in these natural hives that you'll see on the left, you don't get any of the hybrids. You essentially get whatever you put in, or at least whatever you put in the first slot, and the only thing you get out of it is honeycomb, at least for now. So the man-made hives are the first time you start messing around with genetics, essentially. So Elliot, let's go through the process here.
Yeah, so essentially, as you saw there, I've put a common and a forest together, which in a normal hive would have just made a common queen. The first drone always wins, which comes into play later as kind of something useful. But in the man-made hives, it's just made a common forest queen, and all the hybrids have some sort of chance to make a new species. So what we're going to hope to have from these 2 common forests is a new species. And one of the things that the book takes you through, and you get another book later about the different hybrids and kind of how to discover them, but it kind of takes you through the idea of using the Punnett square from your A-level GCSE biology, whatever it is, to basically see, like, okay, if I do a common and a forest drone together, what potential genetic outcomes can I get from that? I could get a common purebred, I could get a forest purebred, or 50% chance I'm going to get a hybrid drone, and it's those hybrid drones that have the chance to become a new species. And in this case, we're looking for something called a verdant bee. So that's what we're going to hope to get with these 2. And basically, the half of the game revolves around kind of finding these different hybrids. We've put a lot of different interesting requirements, and like a combination of not just what bees you put in, but what traits they had, what the environment's like, what objects are nearby, what flowers, what trees, different things like that. So it becomes, with these, these standard hives, although obviously getting the honeycomb for crafting, but we're also using them to basically make more drones of the same type. So not only drones that we can then use to crossbreed, but once we get a new species, we'll be able to use a natural hive to kind of produce more of that new species, and then take that to the next level of hybrids.
Which is going to be particularly useful when you've found a type of bee that has the trait that you want, or produces the type of object or produce that you want, and then you can expand out to have quite a few of those and then push production that way.
Yeah, and there'll definitely be, like, when you get started, you can see here these frames that I'm putting in are slowly getting filled up based on that productivity trait we mentioned. and like we said, you might find a bee that I mean, there's some in the demo that produce very fast, so obviously that's something favourable if you just want to make a lot of honey, a lot of stuff to sell. Whereas there might be other bees that are more likely to mutate into new species, so you're going to want to try and get those species so that you can find, discover all the different types of bee. And did we get one? Yeah, there we go. Not just because I'm the developer and maybe I changed the percentage. That was for real. So getting this new species, basically the rite of passage in the game, takes you to a new book, which basically has all the basic species, their stats, which at this point it's pretty basic because we just wanted to get it done for the demo, but we want to do a bit more of a nicer kind of like stat report card for the bees, and then as you discover new ones, you find out more about them, and then it kind of gives you some clues of this certain bee, it's these sort of bees that you need to breed together, and this will be, I think we've planned out about 30 bees, and they definitely get a bit ridiculous towards the end with some of the requirements that I put in. Some of the different, I just want to actually make some more storage. I don't want to use up them in crafting now that they're filled, so I want to make some more honeycomb. But yeah, I guess that kind of comes on to, obviously one part of it is breeding these bees, and another part that we're going to be starting doing now is actually, taking the produce, the frames from our bees. Oh, very nice. And actually like turning that into produce, and then kind of where that's going. I guess if you wanted to talk about the town stuff, Jamie, and the things we're thinking with that.
Sure. So some of you that have played the more recent demos might notice the pier, the mysterious pier that's at the edge of the map. And this is our kind of stand-in at the moment for the idea around the town. And the idea behind this is you're going to have a small group of like vendors or places you can sell honey, just kind of things that kind of direct your gameplay that's not just collect them all, which you can do, but also things you can do with the honey, what you can do with your wood, you can sell different things. And then it's going to push you more towards quests and other areas. And the other areas is where we think things are going to start getting a little bit interesting, because we have quite a nice island here. It's green, it's lush, it's safe, and I mean, the whole of APICO is relatively safe, but there will be some more things to consider, some more hazards, some more considerations to have, in the same way that on this map, when it rains, some of the bee species, they don't like that, they can't fly, so they go into hibernation for a bit and you can't use them. And for this island, part of the trying to make things really efficient is breeding those species that can work regardless of the rain, so you can carry on, making or whatever you're doing. And the town is going to start pushing towards other islands that might have different hazards, like the rain, but in different ways. So perhaps there'd be a snow biome with blizzards that happen, so you might need a bit of temperature control there. Or there might be marshland that has a bit of maybe some kind of disease or viral activity going on that you have to quash, or the more like dry, arid regions that really have cantankerous bees that you somehow have to calm down before you can enlist their help.
Yeah, and it's something that I think we'd kind of planned from the start. I think I remember doing that little map of like the different biomes, and it had kind of started because we wanted to have like you said, different, more interesting bees. Bees that are a little bit more aggressive that you need to calm down first. You can't just open it up and put it in your pocket like we're doing now. And bees, like I said, you've got the idea of the rain, but bringing in different temperature. So I think we naturally went for like snow, desert, swamp in our heads. And I still, at least a couple of them is still on the plan of what we want to do with the different areas. So here we've got the kind of next step on the beekeeping side rather than the bee breeding, which is we've got these frames now which we can uncap, which actually is a real thing. I looked it up and read Wikipedia for 10 minutes.
So naturally we're now experts.
So we are beekeeping experts, and if you're a beekeeping expert watching this, I am very sorry.
We apologise.
We are very sorry. So uncapping is basically, at the moment, it's not really doing anything interesting. We get some sticky goo, but later on that sticky goo basically becomes a glue crafting item, which is going to be used in tier 2 quite a lot. So for now in the demo, it's not really doing anything apart from just uncapping our frames. So we've got these uncapped frames now. So the next thing for me to do is get an extractor, and we can start actually getting some materials from our bees, and finally some honey.
Yeah, this made me laugh the first time we played the working version of the demo, because I think it took me about 2 hours or so, give or take, of messing around and deforestation to get the actual honey, which is strange to think of that it took me so long to get what is like quintessentially the classic bee produce.
Yeah, and I think it kind of works. Like, I mean, we're on day 2 now, and what's a day is 24 minutes. So I mean, within an hour, you should get your first lot of honey, which I think feels about right to be kind of slowly introducing some of this stuff. And if the town was over to the right of this island, and you could kind of wander over, then you would have already been seeing that there's shops and things that you could be selling already, to be able to within the first few days be making some honey and starting to sell it, and being able to buy some more useful tools and interesting things. Where did I put those other frames?
Because early on we were thinking, how do we make the late tier stuff? Do we add a load of extra ores that you have to find or mine? Any special equipment that we have to get? And that's when we thought, well, if we start going down that route, we're moving quite far away from beekeeping, bee produce, maybe like mead or wine creation from the honey, whatever it is there, and we'd be having a balancing game in the later half of the game towards mining and smelting and all these kind of things. So the kind of direction that me and Elliott are thinking of going with the late tier stuff is essentially there being a person that you can eventually recruit in the town that will forge some metal and some more complicated stuff for you if you do some things for him. So then we put the focus more onto what we think the core gameplay is, rather than creating more and more mini games that dilute the core experience.
Yeah, and I think like you say, I didn't want to turn it into just 2D Minecraft and start mining stuff. Why can't I have this item? So I think that's going to be a nice balance, hopefully, when we get to that point. Let's try and do another common one. So now we've got the produce coming out now. So we've got our honey, finally. We've got some honey, which, like I said, we'll be able to sell. We've got beeswax, which will be in more crafting, so some of the lighting stuff. And I'm still not decided quite what we're going to do with that yet, but I think there's some play in there to have lighting, either required by some bees or encourages bees to maybe stay up a little bit later if they're not a nighttime bee. I'm not quite sure what we want to do with that yet. Bee pollen, which is purely there because Wikipedia said that's one of the things. So what becomes of that, I don't quite know yet. And then we've also got the seeds. So this kind of comes into the whole flower side of the game, which you can see here, you know, the bees are loving all these flowers that I'm going to move away from them. And basically they will randomly choose to visit flowers while the queen's producing. And based off the flowers they visit will be the seeds that you get coming out of the extractor. Where did I put them? And one of the things that you can do is crossbreed flowers to find different flowers. So a similar concept to the bee crossbreeding, but instead with flowers. And as you can see here, we've got no special effect showing up. And what some of the hybrid flowers do, the kind of the next level, is increase or decrease the traits of your bees. So, you know, for the different requirements, for the different things that you're going for, maybe, you know, a lot of productivity or really long lifespan, you'll be able to use the sort of nearby flowers to kind of influence that. Oh, yes.
Or make them really unstable so they're more likely to mutate.
Yeah, which, like for these first few bees, you know, like the chances are quite, you know, they're quite nice. But for, you know, the later bees, the chances are a lot less, purely because we know that at that point you're going to be able to have, you know, flowers that are increasing the mutation chance, and, you know, other things that will be able to affect that. So yeah, we just need, what am I doing with these ones? Sorry. Oh yeah, I know what I was doing with them. One of the things we're going to add purely for this reason is signs or some sort of note taking mechanic, purely to be able, like this fairy sign, but to be able to write on it itself, just because sometimes you kind of get in your head, like I've been doing now, is like, okay, so green, I'm breeding these verdant ones. Yellow, I'm starting to breed these, the vibrant ones, which, if we just look at them, it's just one of the next, the tier 2 bees to produce. And it's quite easy to kind of forget what you were doing, especially when, you know, when it starts getting to doing the produce at the same time. You know, there's quite a few different things going on. You know, we haven't really touched on any of the building stuff yet, and that's kind of like a whole distraction in itself, that you end up doing that. I guess, what was you going to say?
Yeah, so when you're starting to get to this phase, one of the last bees is a little more difficult to discover, mainly because it's not a direct crossbreed. It requires specific scenarios for it to happen. And now some of these in the full game might be temperature related, it might be light levels, but this one in particular is related to time of day. So hashtag spoilers. But hopefully
it's not actually the day. I think that's what that's probably quite bad on our part. I'll try to reword it, but it's not the day. It's just the napping.
So we've got a comment here from Ciridan. What about signs that show text when you get near them, so you don't have to click on them?
Yeah, that would be good. I'd like that more, just to be able to hover. That reminds me of the icon thing we were saying about as well, the pop over.
Yeah, so this one was one that I blatantly stole from Factorio, where you can use Alt to show an overlay with the item that's been created in a particular factory or such. And I thought that'd be quite neat here for the hives, particularly when you start off with these three basic colours that I know is common forest and and the river bees essentially. But when you start using those ones to grow up your hybrid bees, and it's not quite as intuitive as to which one is which. So if you could have some kind of way of either showing an icon of that bee, or as you said, Ceridan, with coming up with some kind of text that you can enter, then you can start really ordering your base around what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I definitely like the just the hover idea would just be nice, because we've got the tooltips over in that corner, but just to be able to pop the information stuff. So what I was just setting up there is one of the bees needs rain. So I'm just setting up the queen ready to go for when it actually does start to rain, and I've lost the other one. There we go. That'll be them too, and if I make a separate area, because I'm getting distracted now. I guess as well, one of the things I haven't really touched on it, I guess, but the also here's one of the hybrid flowers. So you can see there -1 stability, so that's just going to increase the chances of your hybrids to make that the new species. And like the other flowers, it will kind of start spreading around your hives, and we've got flower pots in the game, which, although they're just decorative, they are there for preventing that flower spread. So like all those sunflowers. So if you really wanted to make like the ultimate efficient bee breeding, min-maxing all your bees, you can kind of just set up the flower pots, the flowers that you want to affect your bees, and not have it mess with your perfect setup. Losing track of what I'm doing now. So I'm going to wait for rain for them too, and then I might try and go for the secret one with these three over here. Put some stuff away, Jesus.
So let's talk about other types of hives. I mean, we were speaking about this earlier around where we've got the natural hive and the man-made hive, but eventually wanting a bit more flexibility about what you can actually do with these hives.
Yeah, and that's something like, I think I've even got sketches of it. Of one of the first things I was kind of sketching out was this layout, and what I was thinking of is, you know, you've got the slots for the frames, and you've only got a few output slots, which kind of caps the amount of offspring your bees can have. And one of the things that we kind of wanted to look at is, you know, hives that are specifically built for, you know, breeding loads of drones, just so that that's increasing the chance of getting a new bee, you know, if there's 6 potential offspring instead of 3, or increasing the amount of slots. So this basic hive might actually lose a few slots so that there can be an upgrade to have more amount of slots. But then also looking at, as we said, with the different areas like the snow area and the dry area, to be able to have hives where you can kind of affect the climate inside the hive a little bit. So even though you might not be able to bring bees from all the different islands back to this nice island, you know, you'd be able to cater for some of the different bees' requirements.
And one of the things with all this kind of, you know, different environments is We didn't really want to, introduce 4 or 5 different islands with all those different themes. And basically, all you do when you go there is you go there, you pick up the bee, and you come back to this area. And we're really thinking about, well, why would you stay on those islands? And part of it is this idea around environmental control and what your bees favor. So whether that's, arid heat, cold, um, whatever it turns out to be in the end. And early on, you won't have the technology really to bring them all back to this starting area, but eventually, like tier 2 and 3, you're going to be able to have access to hives, and then maybe bigger hives or rooms that allow you to have a bit more control over what the temperature is, and be able to bring some of these bees back here, or to be able to combine different environmental effects, so cold and dry perhaps for a certain type of bee.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how that kind of develops. I'm sure, like when we make some of the new areas, we'll be able to see very early on if it just feels like a reskin of this island, collect more things but just new colours, or whether it's actually a bit more of a meaningful difference for each of the islands, because that's what we want to go for with it.
Yeah, when we was eventually looking at these kind of environmental hazards and not having something that is essentially a reskin of rain, so snow, like little meteors or whatever it is, that is functionally the same, but it's just been reskinned. So looking at more interesting things, so like we mentioned about arid bees being a little bit more grumpy, or swamp bees having some kind of poison or illness going on there that either requires different tools or a different way to set up, but you get rewarded for doing those things with bees with a better or particular type of stat that is desirable. So it's not just the achievement of unlocking that bee, but there's also like a manufacturing advantage, there's a quest advantage, or there's certain types of bees that get unlocked in that way.
Yeah, and it's it helps. We've kind of got this mental spreadsheet that's like all of the bee traits, all of the stats, and then trying to plan out like which stats come where, which stats can be something that that's more sought after, so that's going to be harder to get hold of. There's the idea of towards the end, some of the bees are producing certain items, not just the usual with the seeds and the common products, but unique items for that bee species, which makes it worthwhile trying to go down that bees family tree, if you like, just to get to those sort of end bees that make this stuff that you want. Now we just need a nice little pipe here, and Bee-torio will be complete. If you didn't already know, quite a lot of the influence of APICO is actually from Tekkit Classic, which is an ancient Minecraft mod, which kind of focuses around kind of like automating different things in Minecraft, like the mining stuff. But also there was a mod called the Forestry mod, that's just an awesome little beekeeping mod, and a lot of the stuff that inspired us for this is basically from the hours and hours on end that I've spent playing that game.
Yeah, so this was at the beginning of the UK quarantine, where we were looking at a bit of an excuse to chat and game, and we brushed the dust off of this old mod, and gradually, as the days went on, I was losing El more and more to the forestry mod and this kind of tree-based hive that he'd built for himself. And as time went on even further, he was coming up with more things that were missing or he didn't like or could be more efficient. And I think like that pushed us both over the edge of talking about what we would like to see in a game to okay, let's do it. Let's find out what makes this work. Let's find out what we can improve on it, and let's give it a go. And here we are, 4 months later.
Yeah, and I like a lot of time we'd go. So I'm trying to check when that B finishes. A lot of the time we'll go home, see our parents and be talking about all these games that we want to make. Because we're always playing bloody games. How much time we've got? Yeah, we'll always be playing games, and we're always thinking about games that we want to make. We'll both play Borderlands for weeks on end, and then be talking about how all these different things that we would do if we were doing it ourselves. And I think purely because of the quarantine, really is finding the time to be able to sit down and actually make a game. And I think I kind of won you round to the idea of the just all this beekeeping stuff, because we had quite a few ideas of stuff. We actually started the Twitter with a different game, which is something we might revisit, which is kind of more of a looter shooter, I guess kind of like Borderlands, Binding of Isaac crossover. And we started on that for a bit, and we got to a point where we were making some rooms, and we had done all the kind of gun mechanics, and then it's mainly me, like I just kind of ran out of time and work got busy, and then we kind of just abandoned it for a bit. And then with this one, though, I think every time we kept talking about it, it's just more and more new ideas of, and we could do this, and we could do this, and this. The game design document just got ridiculous, and we were like, we could add all this stuff, and we can add pipes, and it's going to be Factorio but with bees, and just all this crazy stuff. But yeah,
I think
it definitely
helped. We had more of a solid idea with this one compared to, I think the gun one was born off of Borderlands guns being, 95% of them are essentially rubbish. And considering that's the core gameplay loop, it's like, we can definitely come up with something more interesting.
I think that was just us being
tested
pissed
that
off with Borderlands.
Which is probably not the best idea for a game.
Yeah. And also, not in a way that we were like, we can do better than fucking Gearbox to 2K, whatever. It was just that, it's one of those things where you kind of play a game and you play a mechanic and you're like, that's so close to being good. It just could do with just one little tweak. And I don't know whether we will revisit it, because I kind of love the little robot guys that we did for it.
Yeah, we've got some great lore for that, but whether it'll stay in the same format or whether we'll cannibalize some of the lore and the world that we've built, which is probably more in depth than APICO, actually, thinking about it in terms of lore.
Yeah, something else. We had a kind of idea which was just like, okay, if there's a world where there's just bees everywhere, what's that look like? What are the people like? If everyone's basically a beekeeper sort of thing. So we had a kind of idea, but definitely with the gun one, there was a big story that we wanted to, I guess still want to do with it. But whether that will be in the same format or not, I don't know.
So we've got a question here from Ciridan. What about NPC bees that perform tasks for you?
That would be cool. I feel like someone else mentioned that as well, is to have...
Hey, we got it.
Hey. There we go. So, I guess that we just spoiler in what it is. I'm just going to say, we're basically this, the dream bee is a bee that you can only get while the player is asleep. And it's kind of the first, apart from this one, which is, we're looking to get rain for this one, which is a random chance. So I'm just kind of waiting through the days for that. Apart from the rain one, the dream one is kind of an example of, the not just what you put in to the hive, what species you crossbreed, but you know, what's going on in the environment, what's the player doing, what stuff is nearby. So that's kind of what that's trying to show in the demo, as a kind of, you know, what's to come, with kind of thinking outside the box a little bit, and the different hints that you'll get for that. What were we saying? So NPC bees. Yeah, I think we were saying, I guess with some of the produce stuff, some of the items you'll get from bees kind of save you doing it yourself. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see some sort of bee-powered mechanisms, you know, like having enough hives nearby to actually cause that to happen. What do I want to do here? I just want...
So the dream bee was one example that we wanted to use, but we're being, well, at least we're trying to be really careful about what causes these new bees, because we never want it to be frustrating that you're trying, well, I've got this, you know, gap in my bee almanac, that of this one that I can't work it out, and we'll always have clues in there of what it is, and we might have a few in there that are more difficult than others. We might have a few that are really difficult in terms of you know, min-maxing stats to get them, but we don't ever want it to be so obscure that, you know, you're having to check the wiki or message everyone else on the Discord to try and work it out. I think that was part of the initial philosophy when we was building this game, is just to make it like a chill game. You know, it's no stress. We're trying to reduce as much as possible, you know, conflict and frustration, and make it really clear what things do. And like, for everyone that did play the demo and gave us some feedback, like, really appreciate that hands-on, this worked, this didn't work, because now we're getting to a point where, you know, you've got tooltips to help you out. Everything's a little bit more intuitive.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's always great for to finally get that feedback. I mean, the day job for me is software dev, so to be able to get people, when they finally get hold of your software, like they break it in 5 seconds. You know, they're clicking things that aren't even buttons. Like, it's just completely different to have someone who, you know, hasn't worked on this, hasn't been, you know, doing this for 3 months straight, to pick it up and straight away is like, I don't know what you're expecting me to do here. Like, I don't know what is going on here. So it's been really great to kind of get that, and I think it's kind of helped narrow down some of the stuff, especially with the Dream Bee. I think I did update some of the wording as well. I think it's naughty because, you know, people kind of skip over some of the stuff. But yeah, we mention in, you know, in this one we're saying, you know, the bench item lets you take a nap while you're dreaming of bees, time will get sped up. And then later on in the bee book, I think the hint is, you know, it says like, only appears to people while they're sleeping, while they're napping, that sort of thing. So hopefully with some of them, like, you know, I want some of them to be cryptic. I want one that's in there that's gonna piss everyone off, like, as the final bee to get, but I don't want that to be the majority of bees. I want it to be, you know, a sense of achievement for working out the clue and getting the right combination of environment and criteria to get that bee, and have it actually feel good to have done that. That's what we're doing here. So I've got the honey quest. I just completely ignored these ones. So we've got the honey, and then we need some other seeds. That one. And then we'll make a crack at this last one. But we're still waiting on rain, which is forever the downfall. I think the problem with anything with RNG is just, you know, even, I think rain is after day 2, every single day has a chance for it to rain, and I think it's 30%. But that still means, you know, that there's plenty of chance for people to just never see rain. And I think it's one of these things where, you know, we kind of want to have this control of the environment that the player can finally master. And I think rain is going to be one of those things as well, to be able to, not just have to sit around and wait for rain, but be able to decide when that happens. And it kind of comes into some of the more, like mystical things that we're trying to do with the world.
Because when we were trying to, work out what a town would look like in this kind of world, what would a society built around bees look like? And one of the things that you'll see in the world is these almost temples, I guess, looking at them. And they come out of the idea of, would bees turn into a bit of a fringe religion around these life-giving insects that are just prevalent around the world? Now we have some ideas for this and for the altar itself. I don't know how much we want to talk about that here, but
yeah, I think it's one of those things where I'm like, it's cool, but I don't know if I want to spill all our beans on day one. Give people a reason to play the full game. But yeah, there's just from the idea, like I said, of if bees are everywhere, people are gonna see them in some way that they worship them, or there's some sort of belief system around it. It's something that we're kind of building in gradually, with the dream bee, with a few little mystical elements, so that it's not suddenly like, I'm playing a realistic game about bees and now you're talking about dreams and all these crazy things. So hopefully it kind of feels quite nice with the amount that we're going to go for.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room that you're standing next to, and let's have a little think about buildings.
Oh God. So I mean, if anyone's played the demo and you actually enjoyed this building, then fair play. But for everyone else who was like, why on earth did you make this building mechanic? I mean, at the time, it seemed pretty nice. And the main idea was we kind of wanted to kind of encourage building a little bit. And we thought one way of doing that is kind of with the environment. If you, if you have to be, not have to be, but if you have to build some sort of structures as kind of shelter for the rain, and that's why there's the idea of, there's the different machines don't work in the rain, then you kind of have to build yourself a little structure, a little shelter to use from that. But I mean, just in terms of gameplay, like I don't really find it fun. It gets quite fiddly with adding the roofs on top, and from kind of like this perspective, it gets quite hard, and it does feel quite short, quite like height-wise. And I know some people who said that it actually feels weirdly claustrophobic to see like the height of the building compared to the little boy there. But it's something that we're just going to kind of scrap really and rework. They still want the idea of being able to build houses and decoration. Like people have already made some really cool stuff with the kind of limited decoration that we've got. And people like being able to make the world their own and organise their stuff and not just have a mess outside like me. Which, if you are like me, then that's the right way to play this game, and don't let Jamie tell you otherwise.
Ignore him.
Is just kind
ordering all things.
Change that up a little bit. I actually, I think we did post on Twitter quite recently. Let me just chuck in an image for some of the stuff. But basically what I wanted to look at is more of a kind of like roofless view. So it's still kind of the top-down view, but just kind of make it without having to mess around with the roof. So you just kind of place your tiles, place your walls, and that counts as a house for the purposes of rain and some of the other things that you need to have indoors. Where is it, tiles?
And it was a complete pain to try and get it to work and align for just the wooden versions. And then when we was thinking about it, we was putting so much effort into trying to make such a small portion of the game work that doesn't really add anything when we can achieve the same thing with what we've got on the screen here.
Yeah, let me just chuck it in as well. So yeah, is just it's a similar idea. It's bringing the thickness of the walls in a bit to be chunkier, because it just one of the problems off the bat from not just a development perspective, which is a pain, like for me messing with these walls, but from a player, like so many people, they'll plonk down some walls. So just plonk down some walls, and then like straight away you're like, well, that's not, that's, if I had my tiles on the floor, that's not square. So what's going on there? And we've got the idea that you can kind of flip the walls to change the side of, because everything's on a 16 by 16 grid, and visually we thought, the 8 wide walls look quite nice, but just adding in this idea kind of gets a bit messy, and then just with the the roof on top just gets really messy. So if I just get some roof, made a right mess. Like placing it is a bit weird, and because it's us trying to get the auto tiling to work, and then you have these little back bits here where it's not quite right because you need to not have tiles on the back corner, and we're doing some funky stuff with to get that legend of roof to look right at the back. You can see there, if I go in the wall is there, but it's just getting hidden when the roof is on display, and it's just stuff like that. Like, we're doing so many workarounds to get this roof working, and
putting so much effort into it,
and we're just not even sold on it.
Add value.
Yeah. So as you can see, like we've got on screen there, the idea is kind of keeping the wall kind of the style, if you like, a little bit, but making them chunky. So 16 by 16 Elliott likes, 16 by 16 works very nice to code with if everything stays on the grid, and it should just be a lot nicer to play with as a player. Where you click stuff is where it's going to be, and we can just start looking into having more decorative types of tile on the floor, more different types of wall, and you can see here with this, the hives there with the grass, having an idea of like an edging tile so that you can kind of keep little courtyards, keep little nature areas, where shrubs and trees and flowers can only be planted on grass. So you could have stuff in flower pots, but you might also want to have little set gardens near your hives. So that's kind of where we're going with that idea, with the different walls. I'll keep that up for a bit.
So we've got a question here from Polar Junction.
Oh yeah.
It's, have you considered prefabrications, i.e. craft a house or a shed and place it as a whole thing rather than handcraft it all individually yourself?
Yeah, and that was actually that was an earlier one. I remember saying, get rid of these awful roofs. I remember saying to Jamie at the time, like, what if we just did, if I place a wall like this, it automatically does a roof on top. But just even thinking about that makes my head hurt. So I didn't want to do that. And then I was thinking, like, do you just let people kind of just plonk down different things? And I guess it comes back to, for me, like, I play a lot of Terraria, and I bloody love the Terraria and Minecraft and all those sort of creative games. And I think although the prefab stuff is kind of cool, because you can add a lot of detail and nice set pieces to the game, whereas with doing it yourself, although it's not as detailed on some stuff, you can kind of really make it your own with how your bases look and the different things that you want in your space. So we're going to try it out, and the same as the first time, if we make it and we play it and other people play it and it's just not fun, it's just not enjoyable, then we'll look at something else. But I'm fairly confident that it should be quite good. If we can get it all to tile nicely, and it should fit in quite well we've got an idea to. All these flowers are actually spreading for a reason, which is they are a resource, which you might have noticed in the tooltip is saying that you can use it with a workbench. It's just that the recipes aren't in, which is you're going to be able to make dye like in Minecraft, which you can then turn into paints, which will work really nicely with the tiled system because you'll just be able to paint everything. Like in Terraria, you can just kind of paint every tile and just be able to paint that, and hopefully like those two things combined just let people have all the freedom they want to create all these really cool bases and cute little places.
And this is where the other kind of biomes will come into it, and one of the non-bee related reasons for having them is, see here, we've got the kind of the wood set and some of the stone set coming out here. And when you can just repaint anything you want, color isn't really a desirable quality in a new area. So what we're looking at is more unique architectural styles that get unlocked when you visit each area. So perhaps something that's more ocean-based or shore-based, like fishing-style villages, or something that might be more, looks a bit more like an igloo, these kind of things, but essentially change the actual texture of these tiles. So regardless of whether you colour them pink, purple, mauve, burgundy, whatever you want, they still look distinct from each other to be worth having.
Yeah, and hopefully like that will come through when we test it out and actually play with it. I think the next thing for me actually, development wise, is I'm going to be trying to build that system and build a couple of paints in so that we can kind of test out like how that feels to play with and how it feels to kind of paint everything and interact with that. Because just at the moment, just this system is just, it's cool, like it all fits together nicely, but it's just a bit of a pain for development and players. So it's kind of like, well, why are you doing it at that point then? And I think there's definitely some stuff that it's easy to kind of just keep doing it because that's what you've always done, especially when it's your game that you've worked on for so long. But if everyone playing it is saying, I'm not enjoying this, then why are you sticking to that mechanic or that feature?
So we've got another one here. Will this be multiplayer like Animal Crossing?
Oh God,
Friends Islands?
Absolutely not. I've said to Jamie quite a few times that like just multiplayer in general is a bit of a nightmare to develop. And it's one of those things that really you should do if you're going to make a multiplayer game. Make it multiplayer from the start, because so many things need to be sent back and forth to the server all the time. All these different things happening, need to already be interacting with a server. At this point, like it would be a nightmare already to move a bunch of this stuff over. So I don't think it will be. I think the only thing that we were thinking is maybe some sort of local version, local co-op for two people, and it becomes like a split screen of basically two of the game next to each other, but with two different inputs, two different players, and kind of be able to build a world together. I think that could be quite nice. and hopefully not a massive headache. Oh, nice. But in terms of like big multiplayer kind of joining each other's worlds, I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
So let's touch on mid to late game stuff. So I've got my honey, I've got my wax, I've got pollen. What can I do with these things? What's the point?
Yeah, and that's probably what all of you have thought playing the demo, because I mean, me right now, I'm kind of just waiting for rain, and just kind of zoning out a little bit, doing this little frame mechanic, which is nice. I think everyone that I've talked to playing it has been enjoying the different mechanics, and you do kind of get stuck in a weird cycle with doing it and just wanting to get more. But obviously there becomes a point where you're like, well, yeah, I've just got all this honey, and what am I doing with it? So, like we said, obviously with the town, there'll be the NPCs, and there's going to be a bunch of shops. So we mentioned the blacksmith before, who will be, you'll find him certain resources, and he'll be able to craft you. Let me just get rid of that. He'll be able to craft you, the tier 3 stuff. But there'll be like a general store, there'll be a carpenter, and there'll be an apiarist. Basically, the general store is just going to be bits and bobs, and you can kind of sell anything to him. The carpenter is going to be more involved in decorative items and some of the different tiles and walls that we come up with, and special pieces that you can't kind of craft yourself, but you'll be able to get from the carpenter. And then there's going to be an apiarist, and that's going to be for buying special types of bees, buying spirit level, yeah. That'd be cool. Like, God, we need to get you to play Terraria. They've got like they've got like a that's like ASAP. They've got like a grid system. You like equip an item and it shows you the grid. And there's a ruler one as well. It's really cool. Still waiting for rain. You know what? I'm gonna cheat a little bit. There we go. So it hasn't rained.
Remember to take this out.
Yeah, so I need to remember to take that out. That's one of the first things I did, was make a little command prompt just for spawning in the different items to test them. And as the game's been developed, that's kind of just increased into every little thing that I'm too lazy to open up the console and do. But yeah, like Jamie said, I always double, triple check that I haven't left that in the build for people to mess with. Although, maybe a little creative mode could be quite nice. So I want to make some...
Yeah, especially if we've got enough crafting and building materials to it to be worthwhile to create the most efficient base, or the most creative use of the space.
Yeah, exactly. Like this right here, to me, is not fun to be like, oh, it's raining, I have to have a roof over this. So I'm just going to do this. Why do I need to build a whole house? Oh, but it doesn't look nice, Elliot. Oh, I don't care. I want efficiency. I want...
We catch Elliot trying to do that. That's when we know that the building mechanic needs a revamp. Because if there's a whole aspect of the game that just feels a bit like a chore, and this is a game that has manual soaring in it, so if building feels like a chore, we need to have another look at it.
Yeah, exactly. So I need a tree tap because I don't have any resin. So one of the things I was waiting for rain basically is just for a different hybrid species that only can be found in the rain. But as it kind of showed there, some species just kind of stop in the rain. And some of the workbenches and stuff don't work, which really was just to encourage people to build houses, and it's probably something we'll really look at. But the main thing is the effect on bees. And if you didn't know and you've been playing the demo and you're annoying that your bees aren't producing in the rain, if you just kind of crossbreed them with one of the water bees, they'll just carry on working in the rain, because that's the point of that species, is to work in the rain. So it's a kind of the first example of crossbreeding bees, not just for getting a new species, but to get the best of both worlds, with getting those traits.
So we mentioned the town having a general store, a cantankerous old man that thinks he knows everything about bees, but you're going to show him a thing or two, i.e. dream bees, etc. And then we were trying to think about where do we go from honey, wax, all these kind of basic products, and that's where we're thinking of taking some of the tier 3 stuff in terms of making more valuable items that you can create that perhaps needs its own machine or equipment. So one of those ideas was around the idea of mead and having a way of purifying water and fermenting and getting involved in that whole process that you then can sell on for much more value at the town to get whatever construction or items from the blacksmith or whatever you need. But during that process, we're also trying to think of, we don't want to have these little technology branches that all they do is, okay, that makes that item, that just makes mead. So it kind of locks you into that if you start putting your resources into it. So that's when we're starting to think about like more dual systems. So when we eventually move on to things like the furnaces or some kind of burner to use the smoker to calm down bees in the more arid regions, it's like, well, what else would you do with burning wood? And part of that might be boiling water to purify it for whatever else you're going to make. But having these opportunities to try out different technology trees without having to do a massive research and investment in it, that you can do a little bit here, do a little bit here, and focus on whatever you want to do.
Oh yes, beautiful. Totally didn't cheat. Yeah, and I think the mead one will be fun. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do with liquids actually, because we've got like the honey coming out of the extractor, and the resin coming out of the trees, and the blobs are fine, but I kind of want to make it a little bit more interesting. So we're going to be looking at doing. Let me just put a roof over this just so I can open it. Oh, that's not even the one I wanted to open. So we're going to be looking at, instead of this honey item, is some sort of bar, basically, like a honey meter, and introduce the concepts of liquids, mainly because, you're going to have the resin, you're going to have the honey, and then you're going to have water for, like, cooling things later on, and especially with the fermentation stuff for mead, it's going to be a good example to, the resin would have shown you getting liquid output, the extractor would have shown you getting liquid output again, and then the fermentation is going to show you doing liquid input and output, just to kind of change it up a little bit from not having the same, everything's just an item. So hopefully that's going to be quite nice, to kind of change things up a little bit, and introduce some
opportunity for some different sound effects as well, which for anyone that's played it or seen in any of the footage, or if it's just me and Elle that experienced pre-sound and music APICO, the different feedback that you get from having the soaring noise or the celebratory little jingle when you get a new bee. It's so much more like reward to playing the game and having like a liquid noise for pouring out water or mead, or like gloopy effects for wax and honey and things like that. It makes it much more visceral and enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I have been, well, and Jamie as well, like 3 months of this game in dead silence was just ridiculous. You just didn't realise how much
Charm in the background.
You just didn't realise how much it not that one. You didn't realise how much it just added to the game. Even just the little, the little pump sound, just the little touches like that. And I mean, the music that Brodux did for us, like their stuff, is incredible. They were sending us these little clips, these little drafts that they were doing, and it's just kind of so spot on of what we were looking for. I'd been having like the Minecraft soundtrack up while developing it because that's just exactly what I wanted. So yeah, the sound really added stuff, and the music really added so much as well. And fingers crossed we'll be able to get a sort of whole OST done and lots of different tracks to kind of spread out through the day.
Different areas as well.
Yeah, so like, when you first go to the snow area, how are we doing? When you first go to the snow area, or set sail for the first time, to have these little tracks. I'm looking forward to hearing some more stuff. So far, whenever we've given them an idea, they've just blown us away with the stuff they've been doing. Check them out, Brodux Official at Twitter. Just plug him, get him in the chat.
In the chat, that is his Bandcamp, their Bandcamp. And
and you can listen to the 2 tracks they put up earlier. Yeah, playing this with sound was mad, and also means for any game devs, if you keep uploading clips of GIFs, you'll get 20 different sound and music people messaging you every day. Every day you get a GIF until you post a video with sound. So just a heads up on that one. No, we had some really nice people contact us. It was quite hard in the end to decide, why aren't you doing anything? Because I didn't put a drone in. It was quite hard to decide in the end. There was quite a few people, I think, wasn't there, that had done a kind of style that we were going for, like, a C418 disaster piece kind of vibes, and there's quite a few people who'd done one. But Brodux had one track on their SoundCloud. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but we just listened to that and we're like, yeah, that's what we want, and it just suits the mood so much.
Yeah, when we was looking around, I think that was one of the first people that you found, and we were using that example to compare with everything else. It's like, we want this, we want this, we want this. What else is like this out there? And then eventually it's like, well, why don't we have this? And then like thrusting this and some of the Minecraft soundtrack and some of Niels from their way. It's kind of, this is the kind of feel that we're getting. A little bit bittersweet, a little bit like inspirational, a little bit like almost wistful.
Yeah. Wistful.
We had some great songs that they sent our way. I think I still got them somewhere, but they were like quite melancholy, and then other ones were like super jaunty the other way. So it's like getting that balance of having that same experience, like your first night in Minecraft, and different tracks drop, or those ones in Starbound that give you that kind of wonder of the night sky, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Starbound is a good example of I think that's, for me, for this game, that's kind of too, you're the hero, you're going to save the day, like the whole universe rests in your hands, which is a bit much when you're just looking after some bees. So yeah, we kind of held back that and kind of went for a more chilled out style, and it just works really well. Even with just the two tracks at the moment, and I think it's only 3 minutes of song, but yeah, it works really well. So
I think what we're moving towards now is the final objective.
The final
so
one.
Just lining these up.
Yeah, getting ready to just all in one go. That was something that I was trying to think about, was basically not really an end game, but like what is there else to do in the demo? So basically just made you have to get a bunch of each of the hybrids to kind of prove yourself, and a bunch of honey just to kind of, not kind of proving that you know the concept, but just that you've kind of done all the stuff. Just for the people that kind of wanted to play a bit more, weren't ready to leave just yet.
Have a bit of a structure around that as well, because of course you can play as long as you want, as long as you've got the resources and the stone to do it. But if you've got a bit more of a more difficult objective, to structure your creativity around.
Yeah, and I think it'd be something that we'll have to tackle again in the full game. Is not really an end game, because I think it's not really a sort of game where there has to be that end game step up. Ultimately it is like a sandbox. So there doesn't really have to be that, but just something to feel like you can work towards, and even when you've got everything in the game, that there's just like one last bee or one last thing to do, that for some it might be a bit too grindy, but for others it's something they want to do. They still want to do one last mission, one last thing. So that's kind of what we're doing with this last mission here, is just one last thing, one last get all the stuff. And I think that's kind of one of the things that is putting us off doing some sort of early access as well. Is I think we worry that if we did early access, like, is there going to be enough content in the game to be enjoyable, to be playing like an extra hour for all the weeks of development that have gone into it, and you just play an extra hour and it's a couple more bees and another area, and I wouldn't want people to be playing it and getting burnt out.
Yeah, which was definitely something that I think we've all experienced with how prevalent these early access games are. Like, I mean, when Satisfactory first came out, as someone that's played Factorio for ages, that was the dream. A 3D manufacturing game with all these fancy graphics, like, fantastic. And I played the absolute living hell out of that game. And then once I've done everything in the limited early access, I'd already burnt out all my interest in it and didn't touch it again for probably another like half a year or so. And we definitely don't want to do that for APICO and just completely burn out everyone's interest in it because we've artificially lengthened the demo or got a limited access version that we're else constantly having to update in line with like the full version at the same time. So I think we've agreed that we're going to update the demo with anything that's game changing. So when we settle on an idea for the construction mechanics, that's something that we're highly likely to chuck into the demo, and you guys can play around with it, break it, see what you like, see what you don't like, get some feedback on that. So then when we essentially, if we can get the construction working with a few examples, all that differentiates that from like the full version in the game is different tiles, which me and Elle can sit down and come up with some different themes and some examples for that. But it's got to work as a core mechanic, which goes back to what Elle was saying about the purpose of the demo in making sure that the game is fun to play. Because if it isn't, there's no point.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, so far it's been very positive, and people have been enjoying it.
To everyone for that as well.
Yeah. So I think fingers crossed that if it was a full version of the game, people would really enjoy it. But yeah, it definitely does. It put me off the idea of early access, especially with like the planned stuff. Like it feels like a lot when you talk about it, but really it's a town, 3 islands on top of this, a town, a few more different machine stuff, splitting that out into updates. Like it's only going to be like an hour or two content at a time every few months, and I just think for the people that do like getting hands on early, it just burn people out. But yeah, like James said, we'll update the demo when it's a key thing. Like if I change how bees work, I'd update the demo. To change the building, I'm going to update it, because I always want the demo to remain like a good example of this is what the game is like to play. So if it's anything like that, then yeah, I'm going to update it. But otherwise, it's just going to stay in the full release, I think, unless everyone is like, please give us early access. In which case, then fine, okay, we'll do it. But yeah, I don't think we need to, and I think it could end up ruining the game a little bit for some people, which I wouldn't want.
Yeah, particularly after the first island, when we start, going into other biomes, we start seeing the kind of things that we're thinking about for the town in terms of, quests and little story arcs and little bits of mysticism and magic in there. And part of the draw and the appeal of that, if it's anything like the other similar games that we've played, is that first experience of, oh, cool, that's a nice idea. And if you've already experienced that in the early access in little dribs and drabs, then when it's finally released, there's no value in you playing the final one, because the wonder is almost gone. So we want to leave some little, want to leave some stuff for you. So leave some wonder.
Yeah, just one bit of wonder, please. Just one
one unit of wonder.
One wonder. Yeah, and that's basically the idea behind it, really. Is I think we're showing a decent amount of mechanics here, and and people get it, and they get what we're trying to do with it. There's definitely a bunch more mechanics, say with the fermentation, the tier 2, the tier 3, the town, different quests, that would just be nice to have as just one big experience in one go, and get burnt out that way just by playing the full game for far too much time, which would be not the worst.
And posting all of your highly efficient bases to our Discord.
Yeah, and maybe we'll add pipes,
and conveyor belts,
and just make it
claw arms and cranes.
I definitely, if anyone was thinking, if anyone's wondering, I am thinking of, so the game's just completely built in JavaScript, just plain JavaScript. It's not a library or anything. So it would be quite easy to kind of write your own scripts and modules and add stuff to the game. So I don't know how it works yet, because I haven't really looked at the Steam workshop stuff. But basically, I want to add some way that you can kind of easily drop in your own mods. So it'd be quite nice to see what people do, and it's quite easy to access if it's just JavaScript, and draw in some sprites. But yeah, if you want to be the tech it of APICO, I will 100% support you, and also possibly edit the game for you so that it works.
Sneak it in.
Because secretly that is also what I want, as well.
So we've got a question here. Are there going to be RNG quest board type things, like a random person in the town wants a thing, and you get money or whatever for the rewards. So there's always at least a quest to do.
I think probably you best answer that because that's actually what you want.
Yeah, so this is something that I was pestering Elliot very early on. One of the first things that I wanted from him was the lost bee scenario, and I can almost see Elliot's face in response to this thing because I wanted there to be like a little flying insect, like lost in the forest with some little, exclamation mark on him, and you can go and rescue this bee and bring it back to the hive. And that's still happening, isn't it, Elliot?
It is. It is actually on the Trello now, which means it gets added to the game. So it has
But that
made
led
it.
us down the path with the towns of, what can we add in there in terms of similar type little cute quests that are not, oh, go and get me 50 honey and I'll give you 50 gold, which
Hmm,
is great, but we wanted them to be a little bit more, interesting or adorable or unlock something. So with the towns, we were thinking. So was it the blacksmith that we were thinking about the shipwreck scenario?
yeah.
So the blacksmith is the guy or gal, I haven't decided or drawn that sprite yet.
Or Jeff Bezos character.
Yeah, the giant-headed person, or it's a bunch of bees in a trench coat. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, that's my
But
favourite option.
essentially, they're not in the main town when you start off with, and at some point you're going to discover, probably on one of the other islands, this um, marooned person that's been washed up on the shore, and through you can gradually like help this person out, lead them back to the town, and a few days later it starts setting up their market stall, and the more you interact with them, the more you sell things to them, their business booms till they turn into the blacksmith that you all know and love in tier 2 and 3 that you can get all this stuff from. But it's little quests like that make you feel like you're part of a world that's lived in, rather than you're living in a world with a bunch of very needy peasants that can't do a day's work in their life. So there'll be some little quests like that scattered around of unlocking different things, and the same goes with the different areas as well. So one of the ideas that we're kind of playing around with for getting into the snow slash mountain slash glacier kind of area is helping someone out with being able to reinforce their boat to be able to essentially be an icebreaker boat, and they'll do you the favor of unlocking that world for you, but having all of our little quests being related to something that's tangible or useful, or even if it's just unlocking you another set of construction materials. But that's the direction we're thinking of going with the RPG style quests.
Yeah, and I think I do. What was that?
Lost bees.
Lost bees. There'll be lost bees. Yeah, it's definitely it's things that we want to do, and especially now we've got the quest book in. It'll probably be like a separate tab of like game quests and random NPC stuff. And that's what I was going to say is someone the other day had the heinous suggestion of a trash bin for the amount of bees they had overflowing all their chests.
Or a furnace.
Oh. And no, you can't throw away bees. So that's kind of one of the things that the apiarist would do as well is kind of in a little bit of a questy way of there'll be a certain bee that he's looking for, that he's requesting from you, and it'll be a chance to kind of sink some of the excess bees you've got, because at the moment, like, we've only 4 hybrids to get to. There's once you've got them, you're kind of using up your other drones to clone the new species, and then you kind of don't need to do anything else. But when there's like, I think it's five levels of bees, you know, you're going to use up a lot more drones with that. But for any of the excess that you've still got, we're just going to have some way of, you know, the apiarist is going to buy stuff off you, or, you know, he specifically wants 5 of a certain species or a certain trait, so like regardless of bee, and he'll be the guy that you get that microscope off, that, you know, every bee keeps telling you
that you need.
And no, it's not in the demo. It's in the game somewhere, because it's a little machine that basically I used to use for debugging, that you put a little bee in and it will show the stats. It just needs a nice sprite for it, but that's basically all it's going to be. But yeah, so hopefully that's something that we can do with. Ooh, what's that from here? Interesting.
So this came from a discussion in Discord as well about, you know, like bee removal services as well, and then in a world that kind of reveres bees, I think it's probably been a couple of thousand years, so it's died out a bit more of the religious trappings of it, but they're still seen as a little bit mystical. They're definitely not going to be throwing them in the bin or in a crate. And if you guys are anything like me, by the end of the game, I've got so many bees lying around that I've got no use for. So one of the things that might be included in there is just someone that you can ask to take them away, and they're given to a new home.
Yeah,
I mean, the other way as well with the quests. So one of the things we were thinking about is one of the houses in the town is just full with bees and hives, and this one poor person running back and forth, not very happy, quite distressed at the amount of bees that's in their house. And one of those quests could be that you get the right equipment and the right tools to help that person out and take those bees away and perhaps incorporate them in your base, but also unlocking whatever skill, quest line, or shot that person in the town has.
yeah. That just gave me an idea, actually. I don't know whether it's a good one, but maybe some way of not necessarily having multiplayer, but being able to like trade bees online. I don't know. Maybe there's something quite fun in that. A little Pokemon-esque evolve your bees if they trade. You know, send some stuff to your friend. Could be quite fun.
I mean, we could certainly add that as a mechanic for getting some of the different species.
Ah, there we go. Stop the clock. Day
Here
5.
we go. The speed run.
Yeah, that's it.
This has secretly been a speed run.
This has been a speed run all the time. No, it's just something we wanted to add in as the last quest for people who kind of, you know, some people paid it quite a lot. There we go. That's the demo. Yeah, just like we said before, like just something to add in to give people something to do if they're still, you know, wanting to play a bit. But, you know, I personally, I do quite like having some sort of linear progression in a way. So, you know, although I love Minecraft and Terraria and Starbound, just having some sort of path to follow is still quite nice, really. And, you know, hopefully that's something that we can encourage with the building stuff. Because, you know, I would have quite liked to, you know, have been spending some of this time making a cool little base. Which some people, you know, some people have made some awesome stuff in the Discord, and some really cool little worlds. And I think for me, like, I'm just so put off with this horrible roof mechanic that I created myself, like some horrible bee Frankenstein, that I just really don't want to do it. and so yeah, I just don't. And then for me at this point, I'm kind of like done. Whereas if it was a nice building creative mechanic, you know, wouldn't have spent all this time just going so ham on the bees. I would have been, you know, building some cool stuff.
Been filling that gap with adding to whatever your structure is, the same as you do in a lot of these other games. In that, you know, at night when you can't do anything, or when it's raining and your bees are not working, or you know, while you're trying to get a certain type of bee that you want. I mean, you could be contributing to your base, and that's part of the reason that the tier 2 and 3 machines are a little bit more automatic, because we want to be able to unlock your time to less to be about doing the manual processing and more close towards, you know, finishing whatever your construction project is, or exploring some of the other islands, or, you know, not having to choose in the later of the game between doing the you know, the minutiae of refreshing all your hives, or your construction project, or the quests that are going on, or working out what these altars are for.
And yeah, you know, a big part of that would be in the creative side of things. One of the things we want to do with the town is we're waiting on the building mechanics to actually make the town, because we want to have the town basically made in a way that it's something you could have built as a player yourself. So it'd be very easy to extend the town and have it become part of your base. So, you know, there'd be a lot of creative things you can do with that. I mean, even me personally, like Fallout 4, I think I spent more time making a base than playing the actual game properly. Like, I didn't give a shit about my kid. I don't care where they've gone. Like,
I forgot that was
forgot that was even part of the story. I'm just making my base, having a great time, like spending ages just placing like little objects I'd found around the world back in my home.
It can seem real.
Because it's just really nice, and that's the sort of thing we're hoping to do. Like, if we've got so many different decorative tiles and walls and flower pots and different things that you can collect and put in your base and show off, you know, little posters and little idols and little things that you found, you know, hopefully that will add to that whole thing and be really fun to actually spend a lot of time making really nice bases.
Smish says here, oh God, flashbacks to Fallout 4. Another settlement needs your help.
Oh God, I would like.
That's why you don't do the Minutemen.
That's why you don't do the Minutemen. Yeah.
That's why.
I literally would just, as soon as like you get that quest, and then just I'd run away from him all the time, because there's like a one interaction you have to do with him, and then if you do the next one, like you always have to do that first one, and I'd just be avoiding him. And every time everyone in the camp is just like, oh, Preston wants to talk to you. And I'm like, no, go away.
No, he doesn't.
It doesn't. I don't care. That was a stupid mechanic. I don't care about all these bases. There was like 3 good bases in that whole game that were worth turning into a base. And like the first one was kind of the best one, with the garage and the sanctuary town. Like, you know, started too strong with that one, I think. I've moved everything to Dream Bees because they have the quickest production, I think, in the demo. He says, not knowing. I'll check the code. Let's have a look. This is where we find out. Yeah, so they're, oh no, Vibrant are fast as well, so I'm just talking crap.
I think they have a longer lifespan as well. There's another thing they have as well.
They got short lifespan. To be honest, I don't, well, we did a spreadsheet with all the stats in, but I haven't really checked it properly. I don't think I put in. Oh no, what Dream Bees is the first unstable bee for mutation stuff, is why that's there. Okay, well, I was talking shit, but they've still got good production, so it's fine. I will carry on.
Still efficient enough.
Yeah. And like the flowers, there's a whole. I want to do like a third book, and if you're sick of books, then you've got a bad time coming because I love them. No, there'll just be one more. So you've got the guide, you've got the B book, and then there'll be a third one. F luckily hasn't been used yet, which would be the flowers. So you would have got these first 3 flowers. And it'd be in a different way. Like I'm sure probably people have seen the lotus flowers and been like, "What's the point?" They will actually replace the first red flowers. So to kind of get all of the first hybrid flowers, you would have had to crossbred, flowers with these lotus flowers, which can only be placed on the water, and some of the land flowers. So, having hives near the shore, or using the blue hives to go there. So there'll be a whole piece with that, and it'll get a bit more in depth with the different min-maxing you can do. Like I want to do flowers that keep bees awake, during times when they're not normally active. Just some sort of different interesting effects to kind of flesh that out a bit more, because we kind of rushed it for the demo. Not really rushed it, but just did a few examples of other flowers with some just random stats boosts just to kind of show the mechanic. Not sure. I'm pretty sure there's a big thing that we've missed, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm just looking through my list here.
Oh, so I guess the aggressive bees that we talked about. So if anyone knows real beekeeping, they'll know that I would have been stung to shit by now. For the aggressive bees in the swamp, there will be a case of having a smoker, and this will be partly a reason for the log burner, and a few other little bits, which will just be to be able to, before being able to access the hives of certain aggressive species, is you will need to use a smoker. And then I think there's something I want to do with not just having the smoker as like to calm down aggressive bees, but also being able to add effects to other bees. But I mean, it is something that I'll have to play with a bit more once we've kind of added that in. But yeah, that's just another kind of mini mechanic. Tool repair. I don't think anyone's had really any problems with the tools. I think they're quite generous. I didn't really want to have it that you were crafting an axe every few minutes, because there's plenty of other stuff to be doing. And it kind of goes back to that idea of not wanting to make things manual all the time. So yeah, there'll be some sort of tool repair station. Potentially, something either the carpenter or the blacksmith provide you with. And then I think that a log burner. I think there's one other machine, but I can't remember what was planned for that. If you got that Google Doc handy.
Yeah, I'm just going to look now.
So basically, I sketched a lot of this out. Like we said, we played a lot of Decade Classic. I'd kind of disappeared. Jamie's building all these massive quarries and automation and factories, and I'm still in a little forest biosphere I'd built and never left. And yeah, I'd kind of wrote down a lot of notes of what I was thinking. And then wrote this massive document with, every single thing that I was thinking could be in the game. And I mean, we still use it now, like as a reference. It's still quite accurate of the sort of things that we're going to add to the game. I don't think there's been a feature yet that has been completely scrapped. I'm sure you'll find out when you get it up. But it's definitely something interesting.
Moved around, wasn't there?
I think it'd be interesting to share it at some point when the game's done or nearly done, just to kind of it'd be interesting at that point to see what did actually make it into the game and what was like a good idea but didn't really end up working when we played it, or just something that we just didn't have time, didn't want to do, which is always one thing as well to consider. Does Elliott actually want to do it?
I'm just looking through one of them. I don't know if it's the one you're talking about.
I think it's just called Bees. Really clearly labelled.
Game design document?
Possibly.
This one talks about pests.
What, can you chuck it in the Discord? Let me just have a look. Show people a nice picture instead.
Oh, this is when we was originally thinking of using
bark.
This is
the one. Yeah. There was actually quite early on. Actually, was that you could right-click trees to scrape bark off, and then we were going to use bark for. I think that was for the smoker, actually, wasn't it? The bark.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see. There's a lot of ideas, and then how many of them kind of get scrapped as you go along. More honeycomb or wood resin.
Oh yeah, so we've got here where we're talking about charcoal and using different flowers to create the scented smoker fuel that would do different effects.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I still want to do that in some capacity. I think again it's kind of just a balancing act of we've got all these different bees and all these different ways of discovering them and all these different traits and special products that certain bees make. What stuff do we want to happen from what mechanics? And I definitely want to use the smoker for the aggressive bees, and I just think it would be a shame to waste that mechanic on, essentially just an extra click to access aggressive bees. Like, I want it to be a bit more in depth than that. That was something I added in actually, but I forgot it actually does it. I think people probably notice it more when they start building bigger things. But if you use up an item, it automatically equips like the next one if you've got one.
Yeah, I noticed this. I was just about ready to report it to you as a bug for getting my tree taps automatically in my hand. But yeah, I love that. That was one of my favourite quality of life mods for Minecraft of putting the next pickaxe in your hand when you've done with your old one.
Yeah,
so that was something I appreciated.
Just go get some water. I'll be back in a sec.
Quick, he's gone. Let's talk about wasps. So this one is chucked up. It's the basis for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment with the different tiles, and this almost top-down perspective works quite well for other different varieties of tile, like different types of window, different types of gate or fence. Like one of the ones we're looking at the moment is hedgerows and planters and things like that are more flower or hedgerow based, and maybe some of you can do some kind of crazy hedge maze or something. Messages. I'm just getting up my graphic scale. But yeah, because compared to when we was trying to get the roof to work as well, because each of the thin wall tiles had to read what other tiles were next to each other tile, and then we had to have a specific tile for each of those, depending on what shape you're putting up. And then it was the same with the roofs. So with here, it'll be much more simple to do, and can we put a lot more resource into, actually creating more interesting shapes, ideas, like these borders that you can see in the middle here, as opposed to let's use basically a few weeks of our development time trying to solve a problem that we didn't need to in the first place.
Yeah, with the building stuff.
Poppy hedges for opium. I mean, the pretty red colour. Put that in the smoker.
Put that in the smoker and smoke it. Put that in your smoker.
They started bringing up wasps in the chat, so
What?
I've had to ban a few people.
It's pretty clear in the title. It's the one rule that we've got.
If you guys rat me out.
Just for reference, I actually can't see the chat because there's too many windows on my screen. So I am relying on Jamie here, and I hope he's being honest and a good boy.
Hand to heart, not a wasp in a bee costume.
Not a wasp. But I will go back and read the chat, so you can't hide. I probably know your Twitter handle. I will come at you like a swarm of bees, I guess.
Smish, you're a loyal fan. I will remember this. Firmly Team Meta Kit Kat.
I am watching both of you. If I turn my back for 5 minutes, there'll be combat in this game. There'll be blood shed.
Yeah, there'll be like tentacles and etheric screeching.
Nightmare. I was just saying to Meta Kit Kat secretly. I just realised I've been talking for 2 hours, so I don't know. I don't know what one of people do. I feel like I rinse the game, rinse the demo, try and beat that 5 days, 12 o'clock.
Yeah, we'd love to see someone speedrun this game.
I think you could get pretty good at it. Like I feel like I added all these shortcuts in, and I still don't really use them properly. Like the queue when you've got like multiple things open, and you can like highlight this button for the shift click. I feel like you could get really good at like changing to a target, shift click, changing. But I mean, I built it and I'm useless at it, so maybe someone a bit better than me will tackle that better.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we talked that might be the subject of the next stream. Is as some of you might have noticed, I'm either very static or we could get my webcam to work. So the next one will probably be from my perspective, as I either try and break the game or try and beat L score.
Well, and I wonder whether it depends when we want to do these things. I mean, if people enjoyed it, I'll be happy to do more of a regular thing of maybe us like building some stuff, like some actual dev streams, because this has kind of just been a demo stream.
Yeah, because we had the code like ready on the alternate screen.
It's ready to go. There's nothing exciting going on. I don't think I've got anything. So maybe some dev streams for people who are kind of interested in that. But I think like when the next, if we do the building mechanics next, we could maybe have you break in and showing the building mechanics as a thing.
Yeah, let's do that.
Quite good for kind of showing it, because like we said, if we're not really going to go down the early access route, then it might be a bit of a better example to kind of show how we're getting on with things. If we kind of do little random streams now and again with different progress of the game and what we're planning on doing and stuff like that. I think might be quite good. I think the only thing we was thinking, and I don't know if it'll happen, is we might do a Kickstarter, but not for development, because it's still been fine to be. I mean, I'm just doing it in my spare time. But now a lot of the game engine stuff's in place. It's quite easy to add new content and things. But I think more looking at a Kickstarter for, do some marketing stuff, get some guy to do some really cool graphic design, like for the promo stuff. Pay Brodux lots of money to sit in a room and make an entire OST and not let him out till he's done. Little things like that. I think that's probably more likely what we'd do for a Kickstarter, rather than pay us lots of money to maybe never finish a game and disappear into
we've
the
seen
night.
enough of those, and that's definitely
It's
not
always bad, isn't it? But yeah, I think if people are happy with this, we could probably do some little dev streams more often and change it up. And next time it'll be Jamie doing it, and then next time back to me. Oh God, playing a secret version of the game where you can set things on fire.
Got my custom tiles in it.
How did you even get this? Yeah, and it maybe like every month or every 2 weeks, kind of. If we've got stuff, I wouldn't want to commit to a schedule, because if we haven't really got anything, then
we wouldn't want to make boring content for you guys that it's not worth you tuning in for. But like messing around with the construction mechanics, maybe we can show off some of the sketches we've done and some of the ideas, and we've probably have fleshed out some of what the other islands or the towns look like by then. And we can talk through, and I can talk through what our thought process is and all that, and I can continue to be harassed in chat by wasps.
Wasps. How are they getting in this chat? It's that B-bot is the worst thing. It's useless. It's not even doing their job. What is the point of them? And I think for the dev stuff, like for me, mostly just doing it in my spare time. I'd be happy to just randomly do some streams. If people want to see that of me just having a breakdown on camera as
I will certainly be there.
As I mistype everything, and I spend an hour looking for something I spelt wrong. But no, if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, I can talk about the engine that I made, the cowboy code that's running all of this, and just be, as I'm working on some of the building mechanics, and then stream that, and then the next stream can be you actually breaking everything with the new tiles and stuff, which I think would be quite nice to get those tiles in. We did have another one. Can I just change an image on OBS? Yes. This was also a test of using OBS, which we spent 2 hours getting to work. So here's just another one as well. We're looking at some of the pier stuff, because currently you can't build on the shallows, the light blue, and we want to do something where you can kind of build on it, because the town that we want to design, obviously if it's kind of like a fishing dockside town, we want to be able to have the classic pier look out onto the water, but at the same time have it something that you could have built yourself as the player. So a new type of tile as well, which is something that you can put on shore tile as well as land.
Right, you horrible lot.
Yeah,
thank you so much to everyone that's joined us this evening. I hope it's been fun. I hope it's been enlightening. I hope you've picked up some tips from Elliott playing it. and hopefully we haven't spoiled anything for anyone that hasn't played the game yet already. But if you want to continue the conversation, or you want to get in touch with any of us, share any ideas, or play the demo if you haven't already, we are on Twitter, and here is the link, and that should have all the details for downloading the demo, finding our Discord, or just direct messaging either myself, and that's at MetaKitKat, or Elliott, and that's at LRazor.
Let me just.
So this is high quality production values here.
You're getting it fresh,
yeah,
fresh from the source. This is what you subscribe to. I mean, if you got this far, you know, what do you expect at this point?
Yeah, if you got this far, you guys are great.
If you got, let me just finish it off with a B, and then we will call it a day. Just need to find the B's. There we go. Oh no, where's it gone? Oh, it's there. There. All right, cheers everyone. Comic Sans. You're right. Actually, no, we can't finish just yet because I did the wrong font.
Wingdings.
Oh, is there wingdings? Please, Discord. Yes. Oh, well, that's rubbish. Webdings. No, right. Well, it's going to be Comic Sans, isn't it? So, there we go. And there's the other one. Comic Sans. Oh, I'll tell you what they've got. Have they got Chiller? Do you remember Chiller?
Oh, that was a horrendous font.
Oh, what a font. That was an incredible font. Please follow us. And Eraser. And can you rotate things in OBS? I feel like I don't really know how to use this.
Yeah, we've got to set it up. Let's not break it.
Yeah, let's, well, no, that's all I can do. It's just rotate it 90 degrees. So, there we go. Perfect. Graphic design is my passion.
Here's my portfolio.
Here is my portfolio. Please hire me. Oh, you can set the color. Oh, sorry everyone.
Next week it's going to be out of this world, just spinning.
Oh, look at the gradient on that. This is beautiful. Select, yes, gross, more gross. There we go.
Yeah, that's great.
That's all I wanted. Copy that. Paste.
That's horrendous.
I forget it's delayed as well, so I'm already like laughing over how bad it is, and then I get the second.
Just waiting for it to come along.
There we go. Beautiful. Perfect. This is the content that people.
Yeah, this is the content
people want. This is what they want. So if you just want to skip 2 hours 20 minutes, then there we go. And I think if anything, that should probably be just the.
I think that should be the official. We need to get this on Twitter immediately.
Oh, I'm instantly putting this on Twitter.
Awesome.
This is the only, yeah, where's that thing that you can set like the thumbnail of the stream?
Yeah.
This is it. And it's definitely been there long enough that I'd be able to pick it. So
high quality fonts.
The highest quality. Look at that border. It's incredible. Beautiful. All right, guys. Thanks everyone so much.
Thanks, guys. Catch you in the Discord.
Catch you in Discord. Bye.
Bye.